so hello everyone, and welcome to Tuesday evening here. Once again with me, Baruch. We're going to go over the same things that we normally do at the morning articles, morning lessons together. So hopefully we'll crunch on this article again. So today we've got Shemati 58. Am I correct, Kurt? Shemati 58. Okay. So joy is a reflection of good deeds. So that's where we're going to go from. So, and I've been told if you want to ask live rather than write, there is a raise your hand button on Zoom somewhere. And so you can use that. You can just ask the question and then we'll take it from there. All right, so let's get smashing and let's get started. Shemati 58, joy is a reflection of good deeds. So joy is a reflection of good deeds. If the deeds are of holiness, hence joy appears. However, we must know that there is also a discernment of the shell. In order to know if it's holiness, the scrutiny is in the reason. In holiness, that is reason, and in the shell, which is the sitra achra, the other side, there is no reason. Since another god is sterile and does not bear fruit. Hence, when gladness comes to a person, should delve in words of Torah in order to discover the mind of the Torah. We must also know that gladness is discerned as upper illumination, what appears by man, which is good deeds. The Creator sentences one where one is. In other words, if one takes upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven for eternity, there's an immediate upper illumination on this, which is considered eternity too. Even if one evidently sees that he will soon fall from his degree, he still sentences one where one is. It means that if a person has now made up his mind to take upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven for eternity, it is considered wholeness. However, if he takes upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven and does not want that state to remain in him forever, this thing and this deed is not considered wholeness, and naturally the upper light cannot come and rest on it. This is because it is whole and eternal and is not about to change. With a person, however, even if he wants, the state one is in will not be forever. All right, let's read it again. Our customs to read it twice. Mind you, with Shemati Rav always says if you read it 100 times, you start understanding something. So, which is true. 58. Joy is a reflection of good deeds. Joy is a reflection of good deeds. If the deeds are of holiness, hence joy appears. However, we must know that there is also a discernment of the klippa, the shell. In order to know if it's holiness, the scrutiny is in the reason. In holiness, there is reason, and in sitra achra, the other side, there is no reason, since another god is sterile and does not bear fruit. Hence, when gladness comes to a person, he should delve in the words of Torah in order to discover the mind of the Torah. All right, so let's go paragraph by paragraph. So joy is a reflection of good deeds, right? So in the wisdom of Kabbalah, good deed is a correction, right? It's also called a mitzvah from the word commandment. So if we do any commandment in spirituality, commandment is not like what the religious, kind of think or know in the outside world. The commandment is a correction that I do on top of my egoism. And then that part of me, that little desire that I've now turned into bestowal, that becomes holy because I've done a good deed. Right? So it's cause and consequence. If the deeds are in kedusha, in holiness, which means that it's correction, in bestowal, then joy appears. All right? So the only time we're actually feeling joy, that we can feel ongoing joy, that's what he means, is when we're in the state of bestowal. However, we must know that there's also discernment of klipa, because everything comes on two opposite ends. So if I do one thing, there must surely be another opposite thing, because without the opposite, I won't be able to measure how I'm going to do the good deed, because if I don't see the bad, I can't even imagine what the good deed is, right? So I have to be in between two things here. In order to know what is holiness, the scrutiny is in the reason. So why I'm doing it, right? For what? That's the reason. So if it is in bestowal, it's called, what is it? If it's holiness, there is reason. So the reason is there in order to bestow. And because that's what's called the reason in holiness. In holiness, there's only one thing you're bestowing, and that's holy. Okay? Even when you're receiving. If you're receiving in order to bestow, bring contentment to the Creator, then that's also bestowal, and that's your reason. In holiness, there is reason, and in Sitra Achra, which is the other side, the evil inclination, there is no reason, because there is a reason. There's a reason to receive for yourself, but that's not considered a reason in spirituality. Since another God is sterile, which means if I do it in order to receive, because there can only be two states. I'm either going to receive for myself or I'm going to bestow. There is no other state. So I can either be one or the other, right? Holiness or the other side. In our path, we'll be in both. Okay, we'll have to be in both. Otherwise, there's no discernment. So in holiness, there's reason, and in the Sitra, the other side, the evil inclination, that is, there's no reason, since another God is sterile and does not bear fruit. Hence, so bearing fruit here is actually the ability to bestow. It's like a tree, right? A tree gives fruit, but the tree does not eat its own fruit, right? So the tree is giving the fruit to everybody else, okay? Even to the land, because it becomes fertilizer if it goes rotten. So the animals eat it, can go back into the land, we can eat it, but it will not eat its own fruit. So if we're only working for ourselves, then it doesn't, in spirituality, you're not bearing fruit, because you're not giving liveliness to something outside of you. Hence, when gladness comes to a person, he should delve in the words of Torah in order to discover the mind of the Torah. So when one is in elevation, right? So in spirituality, if we feel like elevated, like, we've got this like good, strong move or mood inside of us, motivation, and a good feeling from spirituality, we should immediately delve into the material, okay? Because that's the time when you get, because you're in that mood to attract the light, the best time to study Torah. Most of the time, we can say that a person is going through the descents, right? We've got ups and downs, right? Does everybody here have a 10? Yeah, everybody has a 10? Okay, good. So most of the time what we're doing, well, more often than not, we're in a descent, right? And this is how it needs to be, actually, because that's the time when you're picking up on discernments, right? So the reason they say when you're feeling elevated, like you've got this good feeling that you're advancing, moving forward, and you've got this motivation, then that's the time to really dig in and to start studying a bit, reading a bit more, and kind of like delving into it. Why? Because then you can begin to discern your elevated state as well. Now, most of the states we discern are always on the downside. To add without being on the downside, when you're not on the downside, when you can add, that's great, because that's speeding up the process as well. And it also allows you to have some insight about the descent you just went through, okay? Because you go through a descent and you're going slightly upwards. Immediately when you start doing something, it could be anything, it could be dissemination, you could be reading, you could be listening to a lesson, doing something extra than normally you wouldn't do, then it allows you to understand the state you went through. Okay, why is that important? Because that's how you build experience, right? Experience is by going through states, but what good is an experience if I don't understand, or if I can't make sense for why I went through such a state? So by studying or adding something, you actually begin to make sense of what you went through, and that allows you to kind of like, make a bit more progress faster. Okay. So yes, Patricia, you got a question?
Francesca was ahead of me.
No, it's okay. You can go first. Women
Sorry,
first. Women first. Women first.
Okay.
Is it egoistic to want the Creator to reveal what your friends need you to pray for?
Come again, Patricia. Your voice is a bit from behind. Let me just turn up my volume as well. Come again.
Is it egoistic to ask the Creator to reveal what our friends need for us to pray for or to do for them?
No, if it's for somebody else, look, it's better. If it's for somebody else, it's definitely better than praying for yourself, right? So there, you're already on the right kind of direction. But what is our need really, right? When we're studying spirituality, the only need the group really has is to advance in revealing the Creator, right? That's our really only lack, or that's the kind of lack we want to have, right? Obviously, when we're advancing, when we're studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, it's very difficult for us to want to bestow because we desire to receive. Okay? So what we can always do, what we can definitely do and pray, and not make a mistake is if it's for somebody else. So if your friends are having a tough time, even in corporeality, you can pray for that too, so that they can get out of that state. Why? So that they can keep advancing, right? Because corporeality, it seems like it's holding us back all the time. That's how we feel. Okay. However, though, it's actually also making a point, in our lives, so that we can make a discernment on how we're gonna, move in between the currents. So praying for your friends is never egoistic, as long as it's for somebody else. Just important to understand, what do I want from that prayer? What do I want from the Creator to do? So at the end of the day, who's going to fill us? The Creator is going to fill us, right? So our only fulfillment is the Creator elevating us spiritually. So if you pray in that direction all the time, then that's pretty much the best way to go. Because even if I know what my friend needs, right, which often I don't know because I'm looking at you guys, I don't know what you all need, right? But I can say that if we all have a desire to move a little bit forward even for spirituality, then I can say, well, okay, I want my friends to be empowered with that. Why? Because that's the purpose of our life. So the best thing to do is always to pray for the friends' advancement and help from the Creator, so that we can move in our spirituality. Okay, it's the best way to go. Right, sorry, Francesco. There you go, mate.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much. My question is pretty simple, and to a certain extent, Patricia a little bit clarified it for me. Which are the deeds that we have to, we know there's 620 mitzvah, but which are these deeds that we are asked to perform in order to raise ourselves and the degrees? Because there is no list anywhere. So which are, I'm looking at it from the point of view of corporeal, but which are the deeds that we have to obtain or act upon?
Only one. There's only one, although there's 620 of them. The Creator will do the last 7. 613 we're responsible for, but there's actually only one good deed, and that's to love your friend like yourself, right? That's the only good deed. So if I'm not there yet, right, but we're in the process, right? We want to study this. We want to get ourselves into this. And even though our nature is egoistic, we want to do something to take a step forward. Even that could be considered a good deed. Okay? It's like children who want to grow up. And they don't really know what they're doing, but they're running around. And that running around is good enough for them to pretty much start to understand what life is like. So same with us. We're in the group running around. So what does that mean? That I'm doing whatever I can in order to help the friends advance spiritually. And if my thought, my desire, my direction, my action, right, even corporeal action, even that too, is in that direction, that's called a good deed. Even if we break plates as we're growing up, right, we break a plate here and there, we break some glasses here and there, nobody minds because we're kids, right, we break them. So same here. But obviously the real the real correction that we can go through is only when we've attained some minimal spiritual discernment, because then I can compare my state to the opposite, which is a spiritual state. So currently we don't have that discernment, but we'd like to have that discernment. We'd like to build that discernment. And in order for us to do that, we take the advice of the Kabbalists, like Rav, Rabash, Baal, HaSulam. So what do we want to do is go and do what they tell us to do. And if we do what they tell us to do, that's considered an action for us. It's an action at our level. So we shouldn't think it's something small, right? It's not something small. It's an action at where we're at. Okay? So obviously it's not a real mitzvah, just like kids not having a real drama, but it's similar. Okay, so let's go to the next paragraph. We must also know that gladness is discerned as upper illumination that appears by man. So happiness needs to be by man, right? So I made a prayer, and then I get an answer to the prayer, so which is a fulfillment. That's what's called a light. So an illumination or light is a fulfillment inside the vessel. And actually, what is a prayer? A prayer is something in the heart, right? So it's not something we're doing with our hands and legs or mouth or whatever. So if we're advancing towards spirituality, what we want to develop in us is a lack, a need for something, a need for spirituality. So if that need comes to the minimal necessary degree, let's say, which is equivalent to something in spirituality, then it immediately becomes fulfilled with light. And then what happens is you get light or illumination in that desire. Then that's called a good deed because you kind of corrected it. Because without a correction, you're never going to get light. This is why when we're working, there is light also affecting us, but it's called the surrounding light. So we're not really feeling it. And that's why surrounding light, when we talk about light, sometimes it feels all airy-fairy because it's like, well, light, what is light? It sounds like a Hollywood movie, what's light? And we're not really feeling it. But if you think about everything that's impacting us, that's called light. So everything in our life, that's helping us move forward, or that's bringing us a thought, a desire, anything that makes us move. It's called the light is working on us. Because at the end of the day, that light is a force. So the Creator's influence on all of us is called light. So whatever we feel, think, want, everything that we're going through is the light. Now, if we could feel that, then you've got an open communication, right, with the Creator. So it's like He's doing something, and you understand, oh, He's doing this and this. So how am I going to now act and do my part and throw the ball back? So because we're not there, this is why spirituality is really confusing, because we just don't know what the old man wants from us, right? So it becomes a bit of a problem. But the way to solve it is like kids in kindergarten, right? So we're all coming to a group in our 10, and then we play around with this concept called caring for other people, loving the friends, trying to figure out what bestowal is, and how we're doing it by studying it. So just like kids study in school and they begin to understand things step by step, and one by one, same here with us. Because we're a desire to receive, we sit down and try to study, understand, get into what is bestowal. Then what happens is we're like kind of bouncing off one another, but because that direction is parallel to the Creator's reality, then according to that direction, we're getting influenced. Does that make sense? Right? Because if I was going with my desire to receive for something corporeal, then corporeal life has an impact on me. So if all I need to do is change my thought, desire, and direction to what I want to get. So if I'm studying and moving towards and thinking about wanting and just aiming the thought and the desire, even if it's not correct, it doesn't matter. Plus or minus, I could be off track as well. I could be anywhere around it, not quite spot on. It doesn't matter. As long as I'm kind of in that direction, that's like kind of getting closer to the frequency of the Creator. So because everything's a frequency, what I want to do is kind of like match myself to that frequency. And that's what happens in time. So as we begin to change our nature in spirituality with the work that we do, with the morning lessons, with the workshops, dissemination, helping each other out, all kinds of activities, right? So what we're actually trying to do is we're trying to annul what's blocking the sensation of that frequency, that's our ego. Okay. So in order for us to blend into that frequency, what we have to do is work on it. And as we work on it, then those frequencies get closer and closer to each other. And then we can feel the light, then we can feel this elevation. And that's the kind of elevation you get every now and then, because you moved closer to it. So you move closer and you're getting some elevation to it. Obviously, the Creator won't keep you there forever. Why? Because it'll then turn into what's called klipa, the other side, because then you begin to get pleasure from the state you're in rather than using it to move to the next step. So the Creator, once again, has to pinch you, and that's called the descent. So immediately after an ascent, during the ascent, if you worked hard for it, like it says, so when you're going in an ascent, you work hard, you enter into the words of Torah, like study, and then you like kind of, it's not jumping over the descent, but your next descent then becomes more meaningful, just like the previous descent you went now got some further meaning with this scrutiny. Then you're kind of ready for the next one, and then the next one can come, and then it can be really smooth. This is why when you're studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, life can be really smooth, because you can understand really what's going on with humanity. Right? What makes a student of Kabbalah differ to regular people is you begin to understand why life works in a certain way. So immediately your ups and downs, even, people in corporeal reality are going through ups and downs. We're going through ups and downs as well. But what happens is, as you go through these, because we're studying and we're understanding where life wants to take us, we've got some kind of contact to what's happening with us. So we've got cause and consequence on our side. And to understand that is already limiting, reducing, even eliminating your suffering. And beyond that, you can even make sense of why you went through a suffering. Does that make sense? Because if you understand, right, if a child burns his or her hand on the cooker, he or she cries immediately, is upset, doesn't know what happened, why it happened, right? And they cry. But if you burn yourself, you don't really cry, you go, ouch. Okay? Why? Because you understand that's hot. Okay? So, you did something careless, but you understand it. So you got cause and consequence under your belt. It's understood. So your suffering isn't there, really. It's not real suffering, it's a pinch. And that's what happens when you study wisdom of Kabbalah. So when we're studying, we're like going through pinches rather than getting slapped around. Okay? And in order for us to get some illumination, we need to have a desire for this illumination. And that's done through the work, which is good deeds, right? So a good prayer, the correct prayer, should bring us that illumination. Joseph.
Sorry, my internet connection is quite unstable. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I had a question about the first paragraph, actually. Is that okay to ask, or have we moved ahead? So at the end of the first paragraph, it says, hence, when one comes by gladness. What does that mean? Does it mean if the sun is shining and I feel good, I should up, and study some Kabbalah? What does that mean? And how does that gladness come? Is it a result of something I've done before, a prayer or something?
Well, look, think about the first time you came to the wisdom of Kabbalah, right? If you're looking for the meaning of life, if you've got questions about your life, and when you come to the wisdom of Kabbalah, what happens to many people who really seek a meaning to life is they get answers, right? So when you get those answers, you're immediately fulfilled, right? If you remember those first times when you came, you're thinking, oh my God, there's an answer to my questions about my life, why I'm going through a bad day, why I want to do this, why things don't happen, or what my life is all about. So what's that? That's immediately you feeling good because you got answers, right? So your vessel got some light. So what do you guys do when that happens? Everybody starts studying. They listen to the lessons. They start reading, and they're like, they're like somebody else all of a sudden because they're getting fulfilled. Okay. Now, as time goes by, what happens? We begin to understand. It dawns on us that, wait a minute, this is bestowal. I don't want to bestow. I mean, I don't mind getting stuff, but bestow, I don't want to bestow. So then it dawns on us that this is against our nature. Then we start feeling heavy. We start thinking, I want to do this. Okay. So then where are you? You're in a descent. Okay. Because now your desire is not there. So that you can compare it to that. Okay. When you first get that fulfillment.
That pleasure that we initially get, is that a pleasure that comes through us bestowing, or is it ordinary pleasure? Why do we feel we don't, that it's bad to be doing that?
Yeah, that's the Creator doing you a favor. That's the Creator doing you a favor. It's true. Because he first, look, he's so smart. It's all working according to the laws of nature. In order for me to get pleasure, I need to feel hunger. So if he wants to bring someone, if nature wants to bring someone to the wisdom of Kabbalah, they first make him suffer. How? By making him ask, why am I living? What's the point of life? I'm going to die in a few days. What's going on? Right? So I'm in this kind of stressful, meaningless thing. Even if life is good, I'm feeling like, whatever. Okay, because I'm not getting any taste from it. There's no taste. Right? So then I'm looking for taste. Actually, looking for spirituality is also looking for some kind of taste. But it's about an inner fulfillment. It's not an outer, it's not like a corporeal fulfillment. It's like I want an answer to my life. So that is the Creator making you go around and look for things in life. So a lot of people who come to the wisdom of Kabbalah, they go into a lot of spiritual stuff. It's like, where can I find something, right? That will fulfill me inside. And they won't get it. And that's good because the Creator is taking them for a walk, right? And then we sniff every tree in the park. Really, he's taking us for a walk. And then we find the wisdom of Kabbalah, and then we say, this is what I've been looking for. So he first develops a vessel in us by making a search. And then, because we're hungry for it, then you get the answer, then you get fulfillment. Then it comes to this. You study where your heart feels good. Right? That's what the Kabbalists say. So then if the wisdom of Kabbalah resonates with you, you feel like, I've got answers. This is it, dude. Woohoo! All that time I was searching, now I found an answer. Why? You were searching, you were building a vessel. Now he's like, okay, he's got a vessel. Let's fill him with light. Bang. All right? And that's how it is. Now afterwards, after he's done that and you come to the group and the environment, he's not going to keep doing that. Because if he did, we'd be on a leash, taken on a walk all the time. Right? So he first shows you what he's done with you. And if you can understand what he did with you, then what you begin to do is like, this is what he did. And now I've got to do the same. So what do I have to do? I now have to build a desire from within to continue what he started. Does that make sense? So he held my hands and I took a step forward. He let go. He said, now you've got to take a step forward yourself. Then I've got to do and this is how it is until the end of correction. At every level, it's at a different level though, but it's always like this one move. So we're all always moving one to the other, one towards the other. So we're making this contra movement all the time. And that's what it is. So this elevation, remember the first time you came, how much you read, you listened, you just were constantly drinking it and getting pleasure from it. And then afterwards, that pleasure diminishes, it has to. Then you've got to build your vessel by yourself. And that's how it's got to be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go for it, mate.
I love what you said about, taking us for a walk in the park, and everything is perfect when he's guiding us and everything just clicks in. And then there are certain areas of our path that don't click in. For example, I'm very close to some friends in my group, and I'm not so close and very distant to other friends in the group. Is that the exact reason why the creator is saying, this group I'll help you with this other group, begin to take care of yourself so that I understand how to move forward?
I wouldn't translate it into that. I'd say this: if there are, they're in your group, right? So you got a few guys you get along with, some you don't get along with, right? The best things you'll learn are the ones you won't get along with, because they're the ones who show you why you don't like them. They're the ones who show you where you got work to do. Because if everything is great and, it's like, I don't know, it's like, oh, sweet, I've got nothing to do. And that's not a good thing. So it's good that you've got some kind of inner feeling that's, against somebody, or it's just not right. And it just doesn't feel right. And you think, I don't like this guy. I just don't like this guy. And then if we asked you why you don't like them, you probably won't, you probably don't know either. Because in spirituality, like, we don't like people. It's not because they've done something. It's we don't like them without a reason. It's like their existence is a problem for us. Even if the guy hasn't done anything, right? Even if he hasn't done anything, it's just like, why is he even here? And so that's how it is. But this is the point where you can actually work, right? So if I was to love everyone in the group, it would be like a little kindergarten. Like, imagine all of us in our 40s and 50s and whatever. And, we're still in kindergarten. It's a joke, right? So the creator has to kind of make us grow up. And how is he going to do that? He's going to say, well, listen, you guys have some dramas. So let me show you what those problems are. So then I have to go against that rejection and think, like, what can I do so I can actually get over this dislike or rejection towards this friend? He's probably much closer to you in spirituality than the other guys. You think about it. All right, so let's go forward. So the creator sentences one where one is. In other words, if one takes upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven for eternity, there is an immediate upper illumination on this, which is considered eternity too. Even if one, so let's do this. We must know that gladness is discerned as upper illumination that appears by man, which is good deeds. So I do something good, I get light. And the creator sentences one where one is. So whichever desire I'm in, right? Where one is means in the desire that I am in. In other words, if one takes upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven for eternity, so I study, no matter what the terms and conditions are, that's what it means that I take it on for eternity. I don't make conditions, because if I make conditions, how can I love? It'll be conditional love, right? It'll be like our corporeal world. So no condition, I'm just taking on the study, and that's it, we're going forward until the end. There's an immediate upper illumination on this, which is considered eternity too. So he gets a taste of it. He'll always get a taste, or we'll always get a light according to that degree. This is why the creator sentences one where one is. So I'm not going to get something beyond what I can handle, and I'm not going to get light beyond what I can handle, and I'm not going to get a problem beyond what I can handle either. Even if one evidently sees that he will soon fall from his degree. Okay, that is going to happen. That always happens, not a problem. But we have to understand this is not a fall. So sometimes friends in the group, when they study the wisdom of Kabbalah, they say, I'm in a descent. There is no descent, right? We're never going backwards in life. We always go forwards. So learn from life. I'm never going to go back. I'm always going to go forward. So if I'm if I dissent, if I feel heaviness, lack of desire, right? I don't want to do it. Then that's a sign that I'm beginning to enter this state where I need to add on to my level to go one step up. So a dissent means I'm just feeling heavy, right? Lack of desire, heavy, lack of motivation, don't want to do it, and so on. That is evidently going to come until the end of correction. That's going to come, right? And as we go forward, it's going to be deeper, right? It has to be deeper. As we get older, problems become, more serious, right? When we're kids, we've got little problems like I lost my marbles. But when I'm grown up, it's like, as you grow up, the problems are bigger. So he still sentences one where one is. It means that if a person has now made up his mind to take upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven for eternity, it is considered wholeness. So despite the state that I'm in, I take on the job. I do what I need to do. And this is also called, being a man. When I say being a man, Patricia, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's not gender. It's like overcoming the situation, right? Yeah. Okay, so in life as well, you've got to take life as it comes and you've got to grow with it and you've got to overcome the problem and you've got to move forward, right? Otherwise, we'll all be jumping off bridges and cliffs. So we've got problems, but those problems allow us to grow. It allows us to scrutinize life. Same here as well. I have to do scrutiny. And so I have to carry on with the study. That's what it means. I carry on with the study. This is why the first and the best rule in the wisdom of Kabbalah is, doesn't matter what happens to you, just keep studying. Okay? Always be studying. And if you can do that consistently, then you can begin to make sense of the things that happened before. Now, when friends don't do that, they don't maintain the consistency, what happens is this. When they go through a fall, they feel bad, and then they'll, drop. They'll, fall off the bandwagon, as they say. So that is a bit of a problem. Why? Because why am I studying, right? I'm studying in order to discern, in order to understand what I'm going through. So if I don't study on it, if I don't go in there and keep punching it, then I'm going to feel bad and drop off. And then every time I feel bad, I'm just going to take off. So it's going to be like little kids who are sulking and crying and everything. Every time something bad happens, they just run away. Okay? So we can't grow in that kind of attitude. So whatever happens, a person needs to just be consistent and keep studying. Then if he takes on the load, then as he studies, he begins to understand what and why, and then how he needs to move forward and get out. Francesca.
Yeah, you said something that caught my attention about the lack of motivation. Now, is the lack of motivation or the not wanting to study or be with the friends a discernment of the klipa?
Yeah, because we don't want to connect with anyone. We don't really want to connect with anyone. We want to get pleasure, right? That's our nature. We want to have fun. We want to get pleasure. We want to be happy. So if I'm constantly, if I'm not receiving, I'm not happy, right? So what does it mean to get into the group? It means to get into the group is I got to get used to giving. So that's so against our nature. Now, who wants to go there? Nobody wants to go there. Nobody wants to take that direction. So what do I have to do? I have to kind of push myself to it. And the way that's only going to happen if I get some help from the friends and, of course, the creator, right? So, but the interesting thing is this, right? I'll tell you from experience, every time I don't want to go somewhere, or, for example, the Sunday gathering of friends, let's say, right? When I used to live in Israel, came to Turkey after the pandemic, because my mom's here. And every time on Sunday evenings, we had the gathering of friends. I was like, I want to go to this gathering of friends. It's just like, what are we all like little kids gathering around and singing? Da, 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 da. So I'm thinking, no, just don't go. Find an excuse, right? So every time that kind of thought comes to me, I used to say, okay, just drag your feet along. I just don't think, just go. And every time I go, I promise you, I come up with a good mood, it's like, I'm glad I came. And that's, it's just, and once you get the experience, then every time your desire to receive says, oh, don't do it, don't go, what are we doing there? Then once you got experience, you understand if you go, this is going to work out. Right? So initially, it's just doing it against your nature, then getting good feedback, saying, oh, I'm glad I got up for the lesson. Oh, I'm glad I went to the gathering of friends. Oh, I'm glad I did this for the guys. Then it begins to make sense, because initially your desire to receive is always against you, and he wants to stop you, or it wants to stop you. And if you go just against it, just you take a little step, just sticking your head in there. If you just stick your head in there, then the rest is autopilot. Then it's just something happens, like, oh, everything is great.
And that's why joy is a reflection of the good deeds.
Yeah, because you
the
did
exact opposite. Okay, great.
You did something exactly against your nature. Right. This is also how we can start to learn what a good deed is. Right? I can only learn what a good deed is if I see, because our nature is bad, right? So only time I'm going to see something good is if I see something bad. I can start. That could be my starting point. This is why starting at the bad, starting at the lack, right? The need for something. We're always in a need, the lack. We're always a desire to receive. We always want something. So that's our starting point. So we can never start with the good. It always has to be with the bad. So we get a pinch. Then if we make a move, then something positive can happen. However, if he takes upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven and does not want that state to remain in him forever, this thing and this deed is not considered wholeness. And naturally, the upper light cannot come and rest on it. This is because it is whole and eternal and is not about to change. With a person, however, even if he wants the state one is in, will not be forever. So what does that really mean? If I take upon myself the study, right, the wisdom of Kabbalah, and what does the study mean? That I want to change myself. That's called the burden of the kingdom of heaven. And I don't want that state to remain in me forever, then this is not considered wholeness. Why? Because it means I'm bringing conditions to the Creator. So if I'm studying, let's say, and I want to make that study pure, right, and a nice, clean study, it means whatever state I'm in, I've got to take it as it's a whole state, like it's in complete state. It's a wholeness. Why? Because otherwise, what's happening is I'm complaining, right? Is there anyone from England here? Right? Okay, cool. I'm from, I used to live in Australia, so we used to call them whinging Poms because they're complaining about everything, right? So if I'm in that mode, I'm complaining about everything, despite the fact that everything is good, right? Despite everything is good, then I'm not really, there's like something lacking, all right? So I'm not really going with the flow of the Creator. So this wholeness thing, I've got to take the situation I'm in, like there's none else besides him, and the Creator just put me in a certain state with everything in it, right? Family, work, health, everything. So the whole package I'm taking in, and now I'm working with that whole package as if this is the complete, beautiful state. Yeah? That's the attitude. Now, this attitude is obviously, it takes time to build because we're not there yet, right? But we want to get there. And the only way to get there is by initially going through the lacks, the disappointments, the lack, I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and so on. But with experience, we will get there, all right? This is obviously an article that's talking about a person who's in spirituality. Now, when a person is in spirituality, he also or she also goes through these descents, right? They're going to go through ups and downs. And in spirituality, though, the beauty is once you're in there, things are a bit more, a bit more understood because you're in the laws of nature. Now you can have some discernment. So it's like your eyes are beginning to open up a little bit so you can see what's going on. So with us, the drama with us is we have to go through this period called preparation, and we just don't know what's going on, right? So it's like full of surprises. Anything can happen. So if anything can happen, then obviously our mood can go through swings as well, because we're really actually fragile and we're very simple creatures. You know, a little light, you feel good, and you're jumping around, and a little darkness, and we're all under depression. So human nature is like very, very fragile, very easy to manipulate, because we're just like a pleasure machine. You see a bit of carrot somewhere, you run after it, and a bit of pain, you just run away from it. So in between these two things, if we can stabilize ourselves and just take life as it comes, even if we don't take it at wholeness, like it says here, because that's really pretty advanced, even if we don't take it as a whole state, but if we understand that in order to advance, I've got to get through something, right? If you think about all the successful people in the world, and if you read, some biographies about how, and what they went through to become successful, you'll see that it's the same thing in life as well. So anybody who's really successful in corporeality has probably gone through a lot of dramas, because otherwise if he doesn't overcome, he can't be successful. So if he's done it by himself or herself, then they needed to have go through a lot of time where they had failures, problems, not getting it right, getting tired, getting, all kinds of problems. And then, there's a tipping point where your effort matches exactly where you need to start off for that next degree. And that tipping point only can happen if I accumulate my effort despite what my situation is. Does that make sense? So otherwise, how's it going to happen in corporeality as well? If I want to do something and I get a little obstacle and I say, this is not worth it, and then I'm never going to get anything done, and nothing's going to happen. So what I have to do is, despite what I'm going through, if I make an effort, the effort accumulates, and then you get to that tipping point, and then bang, that's the aha moment. Then you get the eureka moment, and then you can just move forward. And then what's going to happen? Then you're going to have to work on the next state. But as you get experienced already, then start walking, right? One step at a time. Initially, it's difficult, but once you understand, this is how spirituality works. I've got to go through ups and downs, and I get discernments, and this actually builds my vessel. Then I can now turn to the Creator with something good. Then the downs, the falls, they don't become a fall anymore. They actually become something that facilitates your growth. And this is where many students fall off, because they don't understand, because we study spirituality, want to be good and correct, and we get some drama in life, and we're thinking, why am I getting dramas? I'm trying to be a good kid, right? But being a good kid is understanding life, understanding, what life is all about. So that's what a good kid needs to have. Not candy every time, I've done something, can I have a chocolate kind of thing. All right, so if we don't get this, if we don't understand that mentality, then we can't make sense of the bad things that we go through, or the negative things we go through in life. And then we start complaining about the Creator, and he's doing this, and he's doing that, and he's like this, and he's like that. It's like kids complaining about their parents because they can't get an extra candy. And that's what we'll end up in. So what we want to do, despite the fact that it's difficult for us in the preparation state, is to do our best by the use of the environment to take a state as complete and as whole, so we can just say, well, look, this is the state I'm in. So I need to be mature about it. This is the state I'm in, and I want to get to B from this point. I want to get from A to B. So this is the condition. So I just have to then put myself in the environment to get help from them to pull me there as well. If I get into the environment, they'll pull me, so my effort will be much less. The stress and the strain will be much less as well every time I stick my head in the group. The more I do it on my own, you're just not going to make it. You won't make it if you're on your own. It's impossible, literally, even if you're really strong. Even if you're really strong, it's because we're working completely against our nature. It's just, I won't understand what is I won't really understand who I am if I don't have something to bounce off. If I don't have an environment where I'm getting a discernment about who I really am, then I've got no direction. It's like I'm in the dark. But with other people, I can bounce off. If I don't like them, if I don't like being with them especially, then I begin to kind of like make an operation on myself. I'm beginning to cut into myself and thinking, oh, I don't like this about this guy, so I've got to change this about me. I don't like this about that guy, so I've got to change myself. I've got this thing specifically I don't like in this guy, that must be in me. And then I can pick off those points which I need to change. Now, look at the beauty of it. Most of the time when we get embarrassed in life by doing stupid things, right? Why? Because I didn't see it coming. I didn't think it was even in me, right? Such a personal trait. The beauty about spirituality is this. If I look at the friends, I see things I don't like in them, and then I revert that to myself and say, the bad things I see in others are traits in me. And if I keep that in my mind somewhere, in the future, when something happens and I would also do exactly what they did, I will not do it. Why? Because I've reverted to self-understanding. Who sees from his own faults, right? That's the idea. So if I see a fault in somebody and I understand that this is in me because that's what I'm seeing, then that allows me not to make that action in the future. Okay? Every time you complain about something, I guarantee you will exactly do what you complained about with that person. I do it in traffic all the time. Go, how is he driving? What kind of a driver is that? And then I see myself doing the same thing. I'm like, oh my God, that was me. And that is what will happen in the group. Why? Because we're working towards spirituality, right? So in the group, the things I decipher about myself is going to be directed towards spirituality. Out on the street, it's towards corporeality, right? It's about driving a car. But in the group, we're directed towards the group. So I'm going to be discerning things about what I need to correct or change in order to advance in spirituality. So the environment, that's why it's so important. Without it, I never see anything. So we can go up on a mountain, meditate all day. We will not go through anything. We won't go through anything. What's there to go through? You know what I mean? So this is why the environment is important. And this is exactly like corporeality. Everything you complain about a person out there is you would do exactly the same as they would. And it's a funny discernment. And the whole beauty of it is this. With spirituality, you're conscious about it, so you don't go and make that stupid thing. You don't do it because you understand this is in me. I've got to be careful about this one. So it's already like in you. This is why you can cut down on your suffering. Because a guy on the street who's not studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, he's going through these things. Why? Because instinctively he's going through them. He's living it through instincts. But if you're studying about it, learning about it, then what is in you does not have to be realized in corporeality because you already touched it. Okay? So rather than learning through a bad experience in corporeality and saying, oh, I should have kept my mouth shut, right? In spirituality, if you're in the group, if you understand that discernment and you say to yourself, well, okay, I better keep my mouth shut because this is exactly me talking to myself because I'm seeing in the friend me, right? So in the future, I've got to remember to keep my mouth shut under these circumstances. Then you don't make that mistake in corporeality. I don't know if I got it across. Yeah, if you understood, great. And this is the thing that cuts down on suffering for a person who studies the wisdom of Kabbalah, because you pick up on stuff immediately. You begin to get smart. You begin to understand that what life is showing you is you. So that's how you can maneuver. All right? That's the favor the Creator is doing us. He's allowing you to maneuver through stuff by showing you things first, so you don't have to be slapped in order to see it. And that's what the study should bring us. This is why keeping up with the study is really important. And, you know, connecting with the guys is really important. Otherwise, I get no discernment, and then I get no mind or information or intelligence to analyze what I'm going through. Because if we didn't have the articles, how are we going to, you know, look into what we're going through? Also, another advantage of studying is, even if you haven't gone through what the article is talking about, you study it, it resonates in the back of your mind somewhere. When you go through that state, you go, oh, I read about that. That saves you from suffering because you already read about it. Oh, I didn't understand what he meant in the article then, but now I'm living it. So now the article becomes something that I'm living. I'm going through. So now I can like blend it in, right? This is why the lesson is so.
Isn't that what wisdom is, right? That's what wisdom is. It prevents us from suffering. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. So wise is he who sees things before they happen, right? So this is the whole purpose of studying. I can then kind of benchmark myself before things happen. I'm already like settled down. So it's all cool. That's why a Kabbalist is usually very relaxed. Because why? If you understand the process, you can approach things calmly. So you have an answer for every question. Why? Because you've gone through that state. So it's all good. But how? Through studying it and through integrating yourself in the group. Otherwise, the only way people get smarter is by getting beaten up in life. And that's not being smart either. You get beaten up and you still don't know why. You're just getting beaten up. You're not getting smarter. And I think that is 10:04 according to my time. All right, so 1 hour has flown by. All right, so I hope you guys had a good one. For me, these Tuesday night lessons are always good, right? Because I'm like also able to get through some stuff in the articles as well. So it's really good to see you guys on the screen. Before it was pretty lonely, so I'm really glad you guys are around.
Thank you, Mulu.
You're welcome, guys. Have a great evening. All the
Bye,
best.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Recording stopped.